Alright everyone, good morning to you. Bit of a transfer focus on today's show as things heat up for Celtic. Stevie joined me for the match reaction yesterday, looking back on our 3-3 draw against Dundee. That video is linked above and we covered plenty of ground. Now, in terms of your comments, and before we talk transfer news, a lot of you with plenty of things to say about the game, and generally given that Celtic dropped points and it was a pretty below par second half, undeniably, there's a fairly negative tinge to these comments. But as I say, I think it's justified. A lot of you focusing on the defence, Austin Trusty and Liam Scales, weirdly enough, in particular. Gail Smith, everybody is talking about the better defender between Trusty and Scales, but in my opinion they are missing the point, and the truth is that Nawrocki is better than both of them. Yeah, Nawrocki just isn't rated by Brendan Rodgers, and will probably be leaving this month, so even if some of us rate him, and I generally feel he was okay and maybe had something to offer, it's a bit of a moot point because the manager doesn't rate him. Thomas Givens, the ball gets passed back too much. Put CCV and Trusty up front, then maybe the others will feckin' pass it forward. Like you're thinking, Thomas. We've got Sean Daly simply saying Scales back in. And yeah, that's a bit of a common theme in the comments. Not everyone, it's maybe about half and half people saying that, it's time to put Liam Scales back in because Austin Trusty isn't as good as Liam Scales. And personally, I think we're in danger of being a little bit reactive towards Austin Trusty. He had a pretty torrid night on Wednesday. He clearly has to learn from that going forward. I mean, that's kind of it in a nutshell for me. Has to learn from that experience when you have your own manager being critical of you, being a bit soft. I think soft was the word Brendan Rodgers used to describe Austin Trusty. You really have to learn from that. However, I don't think that we can suddenly sit here now and say that Trusty isn't good enough for what we're trying to achieve, or that we need to sign another centre-back. That feels a bit extreme for me, a bit reactive. The same way some of the stuff that was said about Liam Scales after Ibrox, things being said like, he should never play for the club again. Just a bit over the top for me. As I say, Trusty had a really bad night on Wednesday. Liam Scales has had bad nights as well. He needs to learn from that, and I think he will. I still think he's a fine fit for the team. I think he's grown something with Carter Vickers, and I think generally so far since he's come into the club, he has been pretty good. I've been pretty impressed by Austin Trusty. There's been the odd game, I think, where he's had moments, and as I say, I keep saying he needs to learn from Wednesday night. That can't happen again. You can't be soft when you're a Celtic defender going away to grounds like Dundee, because if Dundee are having joy against you, other teams will try the same thing. So he really has to learn from it and move forward. But I think Austin Trusty is fine going forward. I think Liam Scales is a good option we have as well. I think we have good centre-back options along with Cameron Carter-Vickers, and I think certainly Scales and Trusty have improvement in them. It was a bad night. I don't think that bad night on its own makes Austin Trusty a bad signing. More generally speaking, we had the Pork Chop Express. We seem to panic when anyone scores against us, and often it'll lead to further goals or nervous defensive play. Need some balls to play for Celtic, but some may not have the minerals to pull it off. Similar kind of note, DVP saying, poor second half, concerned how we totally flake and fold if teams take a hold of the midfield. Ida will have to look at his heart and passion. Can cope with strikers having a barn spell. Can't cope with people lacking heart and passion. Sharks out of tackles, doesn't put himself about, lacking guts. Trusty was really poor last night, also looked very weak. Going back to the first comment, I don't think you can criticise the balls of this Celtic team. I think when you look at this time last year when things were tough for the team and the pressure was on, Celtic came good, and it was largely this group of players that came good and won that league from a tough position. I know some people will say that Rangers threw it away. nonsense for me. Celtic won that league last season with that incredible form that we showed, going to Ibrox with Callum McGregor missing from the starting lineup and drawing that game, which was a huge result in terms of winning the league. Look at the two cup finals we've had against Rangers since then. Arguably not played well in either of them, but we won them both. Like, this team has guts. These players have guts and they have balls. For me, it's almost like the opposite thing. I think they're almost missing those kind of high pressure games where they come to the fore and play their best football. I don't think there's been many of them recently. It's been like league games and league games only, really, over the past month or so. And we know that the league is looking really good for us and we're in a really good position. And personally, I could be wrong here, and I'm not saying that I'm right. I never say that, because most of the time I'm wrong. I don't think it's like a deep issue here at Celtic that the team's like going backwards and struggling badly. I just think they're struggling with that edge recently. And I think it'll come back in the coming weeks. Potentially when the Champions League comes back, we'll see the team returning to where they were. But I really don't think things are that bad. Even over this recent kind of 2-month period where performances probably haven't been great in the main, we're still winning the vast majority of games, and we're still kind of progressing in every competition we need to be, and we're on track for like a truly memorable season if we go and win the treble and reach the knockouts of the Champions League. Like, you're looking at that as being one of the great Celtic seasons of this century, and I think we'll get there. I just think maybe a few players in a little bit of their comfort zone at the moment, and I think they need to get out of that. Brendan Rodgers needs to get away for them to start firing again. I think he will. It may just be that the Champions League games focus minds like they did at the start of the season. It may be that a new signing kind of freshens things up and gets everyone going as well. It may be that the Dundee game was a wake-up call for the team. And I know we've dropped other points, like Ibrox maybe should have been a bit of a wake-up call. And maybe it was for a few games. I think we'll be fine. The other night didn't massively concern me, to be honest. I think there's certain players that we've trusted that we've mentioned, and Austin Trusty is one, who need to kind of use that as potentially a wake-up call. But I think we'll be absolutely fine. We've got Michael. McGregor needs resting. He's the only midfielder starting every game. Earlier in the season, he had the international breaks off, but now he's playing twice a week and lacks the intensity. Yeah, I wouldn't be against seeing Callum McGregor sit out the odd game now and then. I doubt it's going to happen over like the next couple of games, Kilmarnock and Young Boys, because he's clearly going to be in the Brendan Rodgers starting lineup for those games. But for, Dundee in 10 days or so, I wouldn't be against seeing him sit out, and maybe we see that midfield that we saw for one of the games over the festive period. I can't quite remember if it was St Johnstone or Motherwell, but we saw a different midfield and it seemed to flow quite well. So I wouldn't be against that. And just generally, the team need to get going again. 3 home games coming up over the next 10 days. Kilmarnock in the Cup, Young Boys Champions League, Dundee in the league, and an opportunity, I think, if the team can win all 3, to have everyone buzzing again. Think how good we'll feel if we win all 3 games, or particularly the Young Boys game. Things are good generally, I think, and we'll preview the Kilmarnock game on tomorrow's video. Right, transfer-wise, a few exciting updates to bring you that came out late on yesterday as well. First, Kieran Tierney. Were said to be close to agreeing terms for Tierney to return on a pre-contract. Sky Sports say that a deal is close and that we've been in discussions for a while now. I think Fabrizio Romano was kind of tweeting or Xing about a deal going to happen. So it seems like things are heading that way. It's not a real surprise. There was an interesting wee line in the Sky Sports report, and it was just about what Celtic are going to do now about Kieran Tierney, certainly we're going to try and do. Sky say that we're expected to explore the possibility of bringing Tierney in on loan this month, especially if we make the Champions League knockouts. Now, that would obviously make sense. Arsenal will be paying him a pretty big wage. Did I read that it was like £3 million between now and the end of the season? So obviously if we were to take on a percentage of that, Arsenal wouldn't need to pay that. Tierney actually played for Arsenal last night. They beat Ange Postecoglou's Tottenham Hotspur 2-1. He came on for the final 15 minutes or so, replaced Leandro Trossard, who scored the winning goal for Arsenal. And he was kind of playing, I think, as a left midfielder, a deeper left midfielder, as Arsenal clung on to their lead. Should have had an assist as well, had a really good pass for Martin Odegaard, and he should have scored. So Tierney, when he plays, is certainly very good, and it's very exciting to have the prospect of him coming back to Celtic. The big question is going to be about his fitness. But yeah, he's come on now for the last couple of games for Arsenal. I think he came on at the cup game against Man United at the weekend. So I wonder if he's maybe got, clearly not a future at Arsenal, but if they view him as a player who might play some minutes for them between now and the end of the season, that could make a loan difficult. But also a loan might make sense for Tierney. He'll probably want to be back at Celtic as soon as possible. We'll want him in as soon as possible, and Arsenal may want to get a little percentage of his wages off their wage bill. So it is possible. The added on bit to this is Sky Italy reporting that Serie A side Como are in for Alex Valle and potentially could take him on loan for the rest of the season. Now, this is linked into the Kieran Tierney stuff, and it's understood that if Tierney returns to Celtic, then Valle may be off, which when you think about it kind of makes sense. We're unlikely to be cutting about with three kind of first choice left backs. That doesn't seem particularly viable. Terrible. But yeah, potentially Tierney comes in, Valle moves on. Yeah, I don't know how I'd feel about that. I think I've seen glimpses from Alex Valle, but kind of not been blown away by him either. But then I keep thinking, obviously different position, but Paulo Bernardo last season, was I ever completely blown away by Paulo Bernardo, especially at this point of last season? And look at what a player he's become for us. So, yeah, interesting one. Will Tierney and Taylor be our left backs next season? Will it be Tierney and Valle? Will it be Tierney and someone else? Or will it be Tierney at all? I'd say that's probably most likely. Another big report that came out last night, it came from Stephen McGowan at the Daily Mail, saying that we're weighing up a move for Real Valladolid winger Raul Moro. Now, McGowan says that Ajax are very keen on signing him. They've made him a bit of a priority. I think even Ajax's technical director has spoken openly about them potentially signing him. The Valladolid situation is that they're second bottom of La Liga. I was looking at the La Liga table, and Valencia are actually rock bottom there and potentially heading for relegation, which would be a bit of a shock. But Valladolid just above them. Moro, a bit of the kind of breakout talent for them this year, but it's kind of reported anyway that they might look to sell him to bring in some money so that they can sign other positions, important players, and potentially lead them to survival. So he's likely to move on from Valladolid this month. As I say, Ajax in for him. Valladolid said to be aware of Celtic's interest, but were yet to make an offer for him. He's valued, I believe, at like €8.5 million. So we're talking like a big player here. Took a wee look at him online, and yeah, usual caveats applied, but he does look a bit like Nicholas Kuhn to me. He's quite a kind of diminutive figure, probably even smaller than Nicholas Kuhn, but particularly quick, great close control. He looks like an exciting player. Believe he can play off either wing as well. So I think generally with him tearing it up, so to speak, in La Liga, it would be a very exciting signing and the kind of player that Celtic fans will want us to be looking at. Whether we actually move for him or not and can beat Ajax to the signature, we will have to wait and see. Steve McGowan also mentioning Sondre Orjaseta, who we've heard a bit about recently, the Sarpsborg winger. So, he's been extensively scouted, apparently, by Celtic. So those are two players we're aware of. The Michel Ange Balikwisha stuff seems to have gone a bit quiet. He's had some injury problems, so maybe that's put us off. But, we'll keep an eye on this stuff. And yeah, I just think we could do with a signing coming in pretty soon just to give everyone a bit of a boost. Even if said player can't play in the Champions League for us, just having someone in for the league game, someone for fans to get excited about, a new face in the dressing room, I think could be a really good thing. So hopefully we're moving closer, and as we sit on the 16th of January with just a couple of weeks left of the window, slightly more than that. I think 3rd of February it shuts. Hopefully Celtic are progressing in these transfer deals and can get something done relatively soon. Just the final thing, the Scottish Sun saying that Rennes are apparently targeting a 10 million move for Kyogo. And we could receive an offer from them this month. I think I read somewhere as well that Kyogo isn't as fussed about Atlanta United in the MLS. They're in discussions with someone from Middlesbrough for big money, so it might be that they've moved on from Kyogo after all that nonsense on the MLS website. But Rennes apparently keen on Kyogo. It said that we'd be unlikely to allow him to leave before any Champions League game, which is just right, because there would be people queuing up on the... In fact, not queuing, there'd be people rioting on the Celtic way if Kyogo's sold before the Young Boys game, Shark, etc. Rangers patter in it, but yeah, he can't be sold before then, and the club won't be. He could well stay as well, and I think probably most people would think he would stay, but there is interest. Atlanta United and now Rennes in for Kyogo, so we will keep an eye on that as well. Keeping an eye on a lot of things. Final thing I wanted to mention, just a wee thing I saw, non-transfer related. Celtic SLO John Paul Taylor confirming that we've received 2,100 tickets for Villa Park for our final Champions League phase match. I believe that's slightly less than normal. I think it's usually about 2,500 tickets. Seems like West Midlands Police were getting involved there, but it's going to be a pretty big Celtic support at that game. I kind of think there'll be a lot of Celtic fans in the home end as well, as is often the case when we go to England. So that's going to be an exciting game as well. Hopefully we're qualified for the top 24 by then and can kind of enjoy that game a bit more. But even if it's a dead rubber, so to speak, for both teams, it's going to be a big game. And yeah, that's where we are for now. As I say, back tomorrow for a bit of more chat and a look ahead to the Kilmarnock game on Saturday, which is a Scottish Cup tie. It's a good kick-off time, 5:30 at Celtic Park, and pretty much looking forward to that game. So we'll chat a bit about that tomorrow, round up any news that happens between now and then. And yeah, if you've enjoyed this video, please make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Over and out.